All right. Hey, everyone. Welcome to the Gundam Explained show live. I'm your host, Adam Blue, and joining me today is Steven of Midnight Hatter, which, today, watching a certain show we're talking about, they had this, like, midnight team. And,
Yeah,
we'll
very
talk about
fitting.
that in a little
And
bit.
and I feel like I'm adorned correctly. If I'm gonna wear a hat, then it might as well be a Xeon hat,
Yep.
right?
Yeah, exactly. I think that works. So, Robert, good to see you. Ultronimus, good to see you. And to let you guys know, I'm yet again, it's the same software, but a different way to go about it. So there's no freezing cameras, and so far, so good. So if there's any audio, please let me know of the audio issues. But I think we're going to be good here. So yesterday, if you got, okay, Ultronimus is saying everything sounds super smooth. Zionic
That's a good
Shadow,
feeling.
RFV, MVP. That's something you sent me. I'll get to that in a second. Brian Zanichelli, good to see you. But yeah, yesterday your show was awesome. If you guys didn't check it out, because we got to kind of talk about not being able to pre-order the Gundam trading card game,
Yeah, it
and
was
we
good
filled that
commiseration.
time.
Yeah, honestly, it was so funny because inside baseball, like I came to Adam right before we started the stream and I was like, look, there are only two things I have to talk about: Gundam card game and the Metal Build Zeta.
Yeah,
And whatever else time we have, we can talk about whatever. And it was like, man, there was so much to unpack with that
there
whole
was.
topic.
But what's crazy is those topics resonated with me so much. It's great how that works. How you're like, Adam, this, and it's like, yeah,
Yeah,
because the metal build, like, I want to get it, but it's like, shit, I'm buying so much stuff, and I have 20 Zetas already. um,
yeah,
but
exactly. And that's, I mean, you're talking to the king of Zetas, and I'm like,
yeah,
I can't justify that Zeta. That's two Zeta for me even.
but hey, you never know down the line. It's just that trading card game too. It's like, oh man, but we'll see when that happens. And then
Yeah.
speaking of like pre-ordering things, not only do some people already have the Requiem for Vengeance Gunpla, but even the writer Gavin Hignite posted on his Instagram that he has the
The
Gundam
universe
Universe
figures?
figures.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's kind of like the same thing with this RX-78 2 Real Grade 2.0. And actually, let me do this real quick. Plugging Art Rovo. Okay, this is in a bad spot because it is so. Art Rovo Gundam, guys. If you look in the yeah, I got Adam. You got to come up with something else next time. If you check the link, oh, you know what? I'm so white. Let's see.
You can
There we go. If you guys
What's
go,
funny is I can't see it, so it's like
oh, you can't even see it.
no. Well, but,
Oh,
that's just because 'cause we're on the call, but
well, I got to
that's so
figure that
funny.
out because that's supposed to help too. But anyway, the
Yeah.
Art Rover Gundam is the transparency of black text, and I didn't really think that through. Check the link in the description,
Graphic design is
because
our passion.
yeah, well, okay, that's for later. Hold on, okay, because I actually was able to pre-order one from there, and you
Yeah.
did too, which is pretty cool.
Yeah,
So
shout out to Art Rovo Gundam,
yeah,
coming through with the restock of the Real Grade 2.0 Gundams.
yeah, because I can't wait to build that because I've built I think nearly everyone that's come out that like the Beyond, the G40, I forget
Oh,
what.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
like, industrial design.
yeah.
Man, I gotta get you that GFT, like, the Gundam Front Tokyo, high
Oh,
grade.
okay. Let me remember because I remember you
He's
talking
like, "I'm
about
gonna
that, and I
pre-order it
totally
right now.
forgot.
Steven, carry the show for just a second."
No, okay. I'm gonna keep that up there. Okay, but yeah, yeah, real grade, and so I'm excited about the 2.0 just because that's just a badass figure. But I
Yeah.
want to another shout out. I got this from Art Rovo Gundam, and again, link in the description. It's a smaller Gunpla store that they want to be able to offer the best service possible. So it's like as I'm helping promote and as we're buying from them, please guys give us feedback, give him feedback, check him out on Instagram. What's
No,
up?
no, go ahead. I was gonna say sweet slap on the box too, the sticker.
Oh yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so looking at this, it almost looks like it is a custom style. I mean, it looks like it takes parts from things, but I don't think this is an actual model
Yeah,
kit
I mean, it
or
looks like
model.
probably like a Seed Ashtray inspired Gundam that's custom for Art Rovo, which is perfect.
Yeah,
Like,
I know. I like that. Yeah, because even oh, where's the other thing? I think I put it up. There was a card from Yu-Gi-Oh in
nice.
there, and it was Health Rescue Rabbit. Is that?
Yeah.
And it's funny because I have a Yu-Gi-Oh card in my attic from Gradius. It's the Vic Viper that I bought a long time ago. So now I have 2 Yu-Gi-Oh cards.
You're well on your way to building a deck, and yeah.
Hey, Lucas Garrett in the chat. Good to see you. And yeah, I was supposed to have the click to chat set up. I'll figure that out eventually. So yeah, Art Rovo Gundam. I have a link in the description, and there's a code that you can use. It in it anyway. I think Saturday I'm gonna do a stream, sponsored stream build for this. But yeah, if anyone's looking for some Gunpla, and if there's any more of those real grades, check the link in the description. Those sell out pretty fast, so.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he also just restocked some of like the G rework decal sheets too. So
That's right. He did mention he was going to start stocking those, and I think those are good. Those are really good. Yeah. Okay. So in a little bit, we're going to get to talking about Requiem for Vengeance. I, did the stream earlier today. You were able to catch a few episodes, so we could talk about it.
yeah. So question, for this is more of a question for the audience on behalf of the audience. Are we going spoilers on tonight's stream, or are we going to kind of keep it?
Dude, I'm glad you asked that. Yeah, before we get to the topic, I guess people post in if spoilers are okay or not. If I see people that are not, or it's yes or no, okay, we might save it. So before we get to that, another thing was last night I actually went and saw Mobile Suit Gundam 2 in the theater again.
Man, you're eating good this week.
I know. It's awesome, all this Gundam stuff. But what was really cool was, especially after watching Requiem for Vengeance after that, how much I would have liked to watch Requiem for Vengeance in the theater. Because, watching, to be honest, it's very long. They're over 2 hours, or just about, like Mobile Suit Gundam and 1, 2. And even though it's long, like, I love sitting there with no other thing bothering me, no phone. I am just focused. It's like, I feel like it's the best way to really consume like your favorite TV shows or movies is like in a theater. And I know a lot of even theaters around me have the option, like, where you can rent a screen, and then it's okay, it costs this much. Can I get a bunch of people? Can I promote and get a bunch of people? And if I have, now I'm sure it's a digital file that they can display.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's an idea right there.
Yeah, and because really, even though, again, I prefer, even watching Gundam 2 again last night, cemented that I prefer, even though I like the core booster, I prefer watching the series with the English dub over the movies.
Yeah.
But just seeing it in the theater, like, I even feel like Kai's big arc happens in the second part, and like I felt like it was a bigger deal. Like, I remember it happening in the series, like, oh, that's cool, but watching it play out throughout one movie, it really makes you like Kai a whole lot more as a character, regardless of his flaws.
Yeah, I think that because Tomino will be the first to say that like the movies are his like, definitive version of the series, right? Because he felt like you could go back and fix the series. And so it's interesting to think that like that relationship that Kai had was so important that despite all of the other things that got cut from the movies, Kai's character development was kept. And I think that that's very telling about like how important that was, not just for the character of Kai, but for the sort of resonating effect that happened on white base because of it.
Exactly.
So it's thematically fantastic. I think that what we really need is like a Lord of the Rings extended cut version of the Gundam movie trilogy that puts back some of the things that were cut that shouldn't have been.
That's a good idea. So it's like I would prefer the English dub.
Definitely.
But so like if I was to cut a definitive movie version, I would take that. But the thing is, in In the second movie, there's even more discussions about new types. And I like how
Yes.
they go about it too. Because just this, I don't know if this was intentional with releasing that with Requiem for Vengeance, but the Xeon soldiers had that same discussion, but on the same level of this is what we understand new types are, and so that it's pretty cool that, like, even though it's like 40 years later, CGI, Western made, like, it still has kind of the same core things about the original Mobile Suit Gundam.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
yeah.
No, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, like, the third movie comes out, I think, beginning
Is
of
it
next month, and I'm gonna go to that too.
awesome?
Yeah.
And that's perfect timing because I did, like, do a little bit of digging. So the HD remaster of Zeta Gundam that's going to be on the Gundam Info YouTube channel here at the end of the month. Um, it's not the movie trilogy; it's the series, but it's like the Blu-ray version of the series.
Yeah.
So it's not like, when I said HD remaster on Discord the other day, some people were like, "Ugh, come on, just give us the series." And it's like, no, it is the series. It's just
Yeah. Yeah. And so that's funny because that's what I thought at first. Like, when it said HD remastered, it made me think, oh, is this something new? But that's just reference to the Blu-ray, which the
yeah,
Blu-ray is fantastic.
it looks great.
But
Yeah, I mean,
what's interesting is I think what they're showing, though, is just Japanese, just with subtitles to choose.
yeah.
Which, I mean, I guess that's fine, but I really think it would benefit Bandai to maybe have a ongoing stream that's like the English version,
Yeah, because don't they do that with, like, Seed?
Oh,
Like,
I don't know.
whenever
I wouldn't
Seed
know.
comes out on Gundam
No,
Info,
I'm
I
joking.
know that they did it for Witch from Mercury. Like, if you go on Gundam Info on YouTube, like, you can watch Witch from Mercury in all Japanese or all
Oh,
English dub.
yeah.
So
Yeah, so they have the stuff to do it. So, that might, and then that's the other thing. So sometimes they'll have them premiere at a certain time and then everyone can watch it together, but
that's
it's
cool.
usually like, I've noticed it's when I wake up first thing in the morning at like 6 something a.m. or whatever to start getting ready and I see it streaming. I'm like, well, I can't really sit here and watch it, but that's cool.
Hey, it's called the Land of the Rising Sun for a reason, Adam.
That's funny. That is funny that it works out that way. And that's when, yeah, because I usually have my videos drop at 6:30 a.m. Central because that's like 8:30 p.m. or something like that in
Yeah,
Japan. Because my second biggest audience is Japanese. I just thought, yeah,
naturally.
I guess I'll do that. I don't know, but okay. So yeah,
How do you think they feel? They're probably sitting there saying, like, "Ah, if only I could get my Gundam explained videos in Japanese dub. Like, this is
oh,
just
no, it was funny for a while there, and it took a long time. I was doing Japanese subtitles for all my early videos, and because I had people ask, and then it was just so much extra work that I stopped, and then no one really asked, and I was like, oh, okay. I mean, and then I had that person that helped me actually do an AI dub of my voice in Japanese, and I forgot if I shared that. Did I share that?
I mean, you showed it to me. I
I
don't
did
know
show
if
it
you
to you.
shared it with
Okay,
the audience, but yeah, I mean,
I
I
need to
think you
share
did
that.
share it on the Discord. So all the
Okay,
more reason to join the Gundam Explained
wow,
Discord as you get some of that cool
thank you.
behind the scenes stuff.
And you know what? Since you're speaking about that right now, also, there's perks if you join as a YouTube member or the Patreon. And right now, I have up the new type tier people where you get to show off like stuff you're doing or whatever. Their links are all in description. We got Tacoholic on there, Sieg New York, Ian, our mod with Naan-stop Collectors, and then Mina Hatter, of course, and then Talos Mobius. And his channel covers a lot of awesome stuff that has to do with like GBO2 and
Yeah,
stuff, but lore, a lot of lore stuff.
a lot of
Um,
lore.
okay, so then what should I dive into next? Yeah, the last thing about the movie. I think we were on your stream yesterday when you were talking about like collectibles that would be available like for movies.
Yeah.
So at the movie theater, there was a little section. So there's way more collectibles now than ever. There was a section for My Hero Academia stuff,
Okay.
which I guess is they have a movie in the theaters or it's coming out or something.
Yeah.
So at least that is actually happening, just not a property I know anything about. I kept wanting to say My Hero Macadamia or something, but have you ever watched that show?
No, I haven't, but I've heard it's fantastic.
I've too.
But
Yeah.
it's like, like I said, I always tell everybody like I'm not an anime fan. Like I'm a Gundam fan.
Yeah.
And I feel like you're the same way where it's like, you know, you're not gonna jump on to just any anime. It has to be either something mecha or at least like tangentially related to Gundam somehow, right?
Or it's one of those things where it's just an awesome story and just the means they have to portray that is through animation. Like,
Yeah.
oh, Doomed Megalopolis, Wicked City, oh man, there's so many words. Bubblegum Crisis, which I was surprised how much I like that. Like, especially the 80s stuff. Ninja Scroll.
Gunbuster.
Yeah. There's a lot of good stuff. There's just a lot of stuff, I don't really care. Or like random stuff like High Score Girl on Netflix.
I haven't seen that one,
Dude,
but
watch it. I cried in it. But
well, my wife is already going to kill me because like our Netflix is all messed up from Gundam Seed Freedom and now Requiem for Vengeance. It's like she's like, what is all this trash?
Account.
Where's Love is Blind?
No, you need a separate account that says like Mecha. No, it's funny because my wife and I have separate accounts, and it's like we know when we're on one of our accounts because like for that Korean cooking show,
yeah,
it said new episode, and I'm like, hey, new. She's like, we're on your account. And I was like, oh, because we were watching it on her account. So, which, by the way, I want to plug this because it's not related, but that Ancient Apocalypse Season 2 is on Netflix because I love Graham Hancock. I love that stuff. Keanu Reeves is in it.
Wow.
No joke, because he's into this stuff. So, okay. So, I guess then speaking of Netflix, and I think we'll do light spoilers.
Yeah.
So I think because you got up to episode 3, or you're starting episode 3, so we'll just kind of vaguely talk about what's so good about this, and I'm going to avoid like the main pivotal moments, and then maybe by next week we'll kind of do it like a spoiler discussion.
I think that's a fair way to do it. Yeah.
Cool. So
and that like it'll give everyone in the chat time.
Yeah, give someone time, because to be honest, if this was any other show, I would not have watched all 6 episodes, because that is too long for me. So what I did this morning, if some of you missed it, I know Jamkill X was there joining me, watching along. We did a watch along. Most of the time I wasn't talking. Every once in a while I would go, oh, or badass. That. But,
well, and it really is just kind of taking our own advice, where it's like we try not to binge TV shows because we like to kind of soak in every moment and pay attention to it.
Which, really the way this was structured, every time it would either be an episode would end or about to end, I'd be like, oh, it's about to end. And because I was really engaged with what would be happening next.
You knew that the cliffhanger was coming.
Yeah, and it was done really well. So yeah, if you guys want to check that out, so the stream was for 2.5 hours, but this was with me doing little talks between each episode, and I did a little break to go walk outside for a little bit.
Get your steps in.
But it was still, yeah, exactly. But it was still 2.5. So going back to that movie theater thing, this could definitely be truncated without them cutting anything and be played in a theater.
Yeah, so, I think it would be kind of interesting, because I think that like in between episodes there is like a slight kind of gap. Like the way that it is written where it's not like one episode bleeds into the next. Like one episode ends and then like there's a little bit of like breathing room between them. So yeah, I mean, it would definitely work as like one movie, but I think it would need like a little bit of pacing.
Yeah, that's true, because then there's the intro, which I always love. That's funny. They do a Gundam intro, not something I was even thinking about. Now, even though I liked the music, I don't think anything was particularly memorable. And even except for some of the strings that would sometimes show up, I think that kind of had a...
Well, and that's a plot element too.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, excellent. I'm glad you said that, because I
mean the orchestral music actually is a thematic tie to what goes on in the story. So that's
okay. So you know what? Then that makes me, in context, then appreciate that intro music more, because in my mind I'm wanting something that's kind of like pumping me up, or like even the Code Fairy game, I think had a really cool, strong opening theme song.
It
And
did.
and while this was more quieter, now that you mentioned how it's related to the plot, it actually makes more sense. Yeah. So
Yeah, and I have to say, this is not, like, too spoilery, but I would say that as a whole, the series, like, with your with whatever your expectations are, having watched, like, the trailers or maybe you've caught a few clips here and there, like, um, I think that it subverts those expectations in a good way. Like, you know, like you said, you watch this opening credits, these the opening, intro scene, and it's like, does this feel like Gundam or does this feel more like a Netflix show? But then, like I said, when once you realize where it's going with it, it's like, okay, now I understand what's going on. Some of the character designs, you might have like preconceived notions about what the characters are like based on their character designs that I think the rug gets pulled out from under you. So it's like,
right.
my advice to everyone going into it is like basically expect the unexpected because you're not.
Yeah, in even in terms of like Netflix exclusives, like I would say this is better written than most. I
Yeah,
if this was a live action series, I think this would be like super popular. I do think, and I hate that to say this, but I do think sometimes the CGI look, mainly of the humans, kind of
yeah,
puts people off. Although, and it could be because I was watching all episodes consecutively, I got over that really fast. It-
yeah. I think that it's kind of like Gundam Igloo, where it's like, yeah, the humanoid animations that were used in the series, like, is the series perfect? No, but I
right.
think that it's very easy to overlook, facial animations when you get such incredible like mobile suit combat, which,
So
you know,
yeah, that
yeah,
is a good part of this. So I think one of the strong suits that I was hoping for and that it nailed is the mobile suit combat in multiple ways. One, I love the designs. I know
yeah,
there's little various differences that people can nitpick, but to be honest, like as a whole, like the fact that they're modernizing it in this way using classic or mechanical designers like from 08MS team,
yeah.
it's so it's like they're able to, it's an older designer that's able to really modernize these things in a way, but just to make it work. um and the other part that I'm really, and I think you are too, we talk about cinema and film and how the lens tells a story too, because it's how it's positioned, how it looks. The series also did an excellent job with that, because there were times where the camera looked like it was a crane. A lot
Yeah,
of times when mobile suits were among other forces or ground forces, the camera is always like looking more up instead of
yeah,
just like at their level, like it's two people talking. And so I felt like they took care with every scene, with the battles, with the and just from and speaking on like the first two episodes, just the way they made, like I loved how it was almost like real time, how they get attacked and it's like they're scrambling. I think one of the Jurassic Park movies is a good example, but also that Matt Damon movie where he's on Mars. I always forget that name of that movie.
oh, The Martian?
The Martian.
Yeah,
Where he's like taking his time, like figuring out how to do the thing and then do the next thing. Like they're doing that. It's like,
yeah,
okay, this happened, so now I got to go over here and do this. But oh, now something happens, so then okay, let's go do this. Okay, let's. And then in the background, you see the Gundam EX just like slicing and dicing, and it's like, whoa, that's
well,
pretty badass. Like,
and it's terrifying because I think, like, it's so rare that we actually get to see nighttime Gundam
yeah,
battles, like, throughout
right.
throughout, like, all of the One Year Wars. Like, Rambaral, the big fight was in the desert during the day. Like,
Yep.
there are very few moments where you get nighttime battles, and so that kind of added to that terror that's evoked by the Gundam.
It did, because it's the nighttime with trees and like it's like that Eastern European countryside. You see like a mix of the old homes, and what I really appreciated too is like they were going through like what looked like the older traditional homes, but if you look closely like on the roofs, it was like more modern technology was used to make the roofs work, like bolts in certain
Yeah.
areas,
It
solar
was, like, kind
panels.
of, retrofitted is, I
Yeah,
think, the term,
yeah,
right? So, and I mean, honestly, like, the scene that you're talking about, like, it really captures that sort of Band of Brothers style, like,
oh yeah,
you've got and this goes to credit the writing, is that the pacing of everything happens really nice. Like
Yeah.
the kind of dovetailing between action scene, and then you get like a little downplay scene where it's just Xeon soldiers kind of like teasing each other and talking, and
Ah,
you get that feeling of camaraderie. And even in just a couple of lines of dialogue, it's like, okay, I understand that this guy is like the Xeon zealot. This guy's just in it for the money. This guy's like, so they all kind of have their own motivations and their own backstory for being there. And all of that is in the span of what, like 35 seconds of characterization?
yeah. And I think I even brought that up in my live viewing when I was watching it, where I'm like, whoa, there's so much world building going on. Just like showing, yeah, like you said, this character's doing this character's doing that, this character is acting this way. And it's like, oh, it's really cool to get more deep into, like, the Xeon soldiers just kind of, and we got that before, like with War in the Pocket, you know? And I thought
Yeah.
that was done really well, where it's, that Cyclops team and, what they're kind of doing when they're waiting around, at the colony, but, and then get caught up with the kids. So like we get that in here. And then, let's say, I don't want to say too much. So one interesting thing was, well, should I bring this up real quick? Did you happen to read more than you've watched?
That's a very cryptic way.
It is. Did you happen to read like the ending?
Oh, no, I haven't.
Okay, don't.
Don't.
Because I think I had a certain opinion of the ending, and then I saw other opinions, and I felt like it was almost like trying to magnify that feeling to be then bigger than it was. And I had to back up like, well, I know other people are saying this too, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. So it would really be cool to break down the ending with you.
Yeah, I would enjoy that. I mean, and I tend to like not put a lot of weight in what other people will say online
Yeah.
unless it's something that I've kind of
That-
looked into myself. So,
Yeah, sometimes.
despite the fact that I've caught a few spoilers for episodes 4 and 5,
Oh, yeah.
but
Yeah.
one kind of funny thing, and this isn't so much a spoiler, but I definitely want to get this get this trending, is of course because I'm a boomer and my wife and I watch Netflix with the captions on because we can never
Oh,
hear what.
good idea.
So one of the most hilarious captions that comes up in the first episode is, the Xeon soldiers are under attack and one of them's got his back against the tank, and the caption just says war sounds.
Oh, wow.
I was like, okay, so hashtag war sounds.
That's actually pretty cool. Hashtag war sounds. I like that. I like the sound of that.
Because I was like, if you're gonna put a caption around sound effects, it's like you could have said like distant gunfire or
Right.
but like
Or
war sounds,
tank shell impact, or
explosion,
yeah,
like
yeah.
no war sounds.
No, that's funny. Okay, let me kind of cycle because I'm trying to think where I don't want to be spoilery, but okay. Here's another thing. The characters. So, Solario is really cool because they're, it's like, why would you have the shaved head necessarily? Are they trying to make all these people trendy? We already have the girl with the nose ring, but you see the scar,
That
and it's
makes
like,
it make more sense.
yeah.
Like,
And then did you get to the part where she looks in the pocket watch? Okay, so then
Yeah.
you see that she really has hair, so it's not like this was by choice. So that just added more story, to it.
exactly.
Oh,
But
and
hey,
yeah,
shout out to Lucas Garrett.
you know what? I wonder if I could. I wish I could share this on the stream. So everyone, look in the chat if you haven't. I'll read it from Lucas Garrett, $10 super chat. What if the myth of the original RX-78-2 Gundam as seen by Xeon forces as the White Devil is more so about that Gundam and other Gundams deployed in combat zones during the One-Year War? I like that idea.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of my headcanon, is that like basically all of the different Gundams that have been deployed. We've already talked about how the Gundam was used as a propaganda type tool, but it's like, imagine you are Xeon, you're a Xeon troop, and it's like you hear these stories about this white mobile suit that's cutting down dozens of Zaku's, and it's like, well, that's in Odessa, that's not my problem. And then all of a sudden the Gundam Fourth shows up in space, and you're like, how can it be in two places at once? Like,
Yeah, you know what? Because someone brought up, another prototype Gundam showing up at this point, but with how desperate. I mean, think about this. Earth is being taken over by a superior force at that point. Like,
Yeah.
how does that happen? And they had to be desperate. And I think, again, this is headcanon stuff, but them like throwing out, okay, this is what we built with the RX-78 too. Here's related part. Let's just throw them out everywhere. And that's why the thing not only doesn't look fully built, but then it has some parts related to, other regions where Gundams have been deployed, like Southeast Asia with 08 MS team. There's some like crossover, and yeah, I like the idea of that. Now I don't know if you got to the part, but they do use a nickname.
Yeah.
Did you? Okay. Did you hear it? I don't want to spoil it for you if you don't.
No,
It's not really a spoiler.
No, I don't think so.
The White Demon.
Yeah.
Which instead of devil, but I think that kind of still is that same concept, because people are going to use different words to kind of explain what they're seeing. But, Lucas Garrett, I got to say, I love that to be in my headcanon now, that it is that once the Earth Federation forces realize that they need to get these Gundam prototypes throughout Earth in general, even Earth Sphere, I guess, Zeon, going through the Zeon chatter is like, hey, the white devil, the white demon, like, it's here now. Oh, it's there. Because usually once they realize who's piloting it, they're dead.
Yeah. I mean, they wouldn't even really get a chance to, and to be honest, this is, well, so like in the original series, we see what impact beam weaponry, like both the beam saber and the beam rifle have, like on the Zeon soldiers. And you get some of that in Requiem for Vengeance as well, where it's like, the beam saber itself is just a revolutionary weapon that even if it's not a Gundam wielding it, if you're a Zeon soldier and it's like, even before December, you're terrified when you see something like that, because it's like, we didn't know that they had weapons like this. Like, Gundam aside, if they had a beam rifle and a beam saber, that's like game changing.
I'm glad you brought that up. One of our most favorite quotes we say to each other. But when they first fired the beam rifle, the Gundam, and it went through the Zaku 2, and then the building right behind it, and then out into the forest, and it exploded, I think that really did a good job of portraying this is how powerful this gun is that this Gundam has. Because, it's fun. It's interesting to think of watching the show in context of not knowing Gundam. And you're like, oh, this is on Netflix. It looks good. I'll watch it. And seeing the power of that weapon. And then they did a good job throughout of like, yeah, that is a powerful weapon. Like, you're just in a Zaku. Because she made it a big deal to like get cover. Go behind cover. I forget if that's earlier on or later, but it was like they just had to be in cover. Even when you see they say gyms in this, so I think I have to concede. But with their pistol, the beam pistol, that's interesting, because like, okay, this is a lesser version of the Gundam, so it's going to have sort of this. So even how they were fighting it reflected that. It having the lesser kind of beam pistol kind of shit. Okay, they even have like on a smaller scale the weaponry. And the way the beam saber looked ignited looked really great, because it had like a blue to pink kind of hue coming out of the end of the handle.
It was a pretty sweet design.
Yeah.
And I think, that's kind of the first time that we as the audience have seen it, because I don't remember seeing the beam saber ignited in the trailer.
Yeah. I don't, maybe you saw it like where it sliced through someone, but I don't think there was ever really a good shot to see. Like, I loved that design where sometimes it's almost like the flame, the heat is so hot you're not actually seeing it until like a little bit later, and then it's like
a lighter.
Yeah, like a lighter. So that was really cool about it. And I brought this up when I did that interview with Gavin Hignite, but it's like this kind of has that horror element to it, and this is that time of year. So it's like that it works, I think, unintentionally, because they really, I mean, even though we saw in the trailer the Gundam come out from behind the building with the fire and the smoke, even when it happened in the show, it's like, oh shit. Just again, because of the context of the characters, how they were written at that moment, you felt for them, and it's like, oh god. Well, and as someone that knows Gundam, it's like, what are they gonna do?
Yeah. And to like address some of the, like, I guess the complaints around, here we go, another 1-year war Gundam prototype. Like, dude, in the original series, even Temray says like, "Oh yeah, they had parts for," well, no, it's not Temray, but it's one of the White Base crew is like, "Oh no, we have parts for 3 more Gundams on board White Base."
Yeah.
And Amuro goes and lights him up with the super napalm, but like technically there were 4 Gundams on board White Base, and so it's like the idea that they could scrap together something using the parts that weren't torched up by the super napalm in the original
Yeah.
series and put together something like the EX, that's
Yeah. I like that. I mean, you look at what happens with the EZ8, right? Or
yeah,
the ground Gundam to the EZ8, like kind of. So, and that's another thing too, where they really do that. It's very much in lore for these engineers to be able to quickly, and I guess they have the means to generally quickly be able to patch together a mobile suit to get it to work. Now, have
yeah.
you ever seen that happen in space? Because I almost feel like that's harder to do. I feel like that's an exclusive sort of like ground combat
Yeah.
type of thing.
Yeah, I mean, the only time I can kind of think of it would be like the GPO-1 full burner, but, like, that was kind of already a
Yeah.
planned upgrade.
Yeah,
It
that was
wasn't
like,
like a
yeah.
spontaneous.
No, yeah, that's a good point. So I think that's another cool, again, callback with this was doubling down on that idea of, oh, yeah, we can patch together some mobile suits, not only with a prototype Gundam, but also, you know, the Zaku 2s, which is really cool to see.
Yeah.
Um, so, you know, the other cool thing too is like when the Gundam EX is fighting and it has its beam saber out and then it has the shoulder Gatling gun come out. Did it
Yeah.
not have Vulcans? Because
I don't think it did,
okay,
which I mean, I think that that's kind of in line with some of, like, the Origin mobile suits, right? Like, most of the Origin mobile suits don't necessarily have, like, the head Vulcans, but they have, like, maybe, like, chest Gatlings and things like that.
okay, yeah. So that's kind of a cool like other way to get that part down because he was using it to aim at the dot fighters, and that's kind of like what the Vulcans were doing. Like yeah, I was watching Mobile Suit Gundam 2 last night in the theater, and that's what like you're kind of doing. And oh man, there's this one scene right where he like shoots it down with his Gatling and then kind of just jumps with the beam saber and just like, and I'm like, I feel like I'm playing like Journey to Jaburo or something like.
Yeah, I mean, I cannot overstate enough. Like I said, and it sucks because I think that, like you said, the director of photography, like the actual cinematography that's going on in it almost kind of highlights how bad the facial animations are on the character models
Right.
because some of the camera angles are so good, like
Yes.
that it highlights characters emoting, and then you're like, oh, I don't want to see this. But then contrast that with some of the mobile suit combat, which is, I think I tweeted this out, is it's like some of the best mobile suit combat I've ever seen, like animated. I'm not a huge fan of like some of the more things like Double O or Seed, where it's like super robot-y and you've got like thousands of little beam weapons
Right.
coming out and that kind of thing.
It's almost like
Um,
Seed kind of set that trend, but it worked in that. But then
yeah,
they kind of just kept doing that with future ones.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And so that's kind of been one of the issues that I had like around Unicorn, right? But like,
Mm.
but this I think is on par with like the Zeta Gundam New Translation mobile suit combat animation, where it's
Oh
like,
yeah.
you have mobile suits used in interesting ways. I don't think that it's too much of a spoiler to talk about the kick,
No. What?
Captain Solari's kick in the
Oh.
first episode.
Oh yeah. No. No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that to me, it just really highlights why mobile suits became, the standard of military hardware during the 1 Year War is that, when you're sitting in a tank and you're kind of limited in your mobility, then all of a sudden you just get punted.
Yeah. I know and
Like,
so that's kind of a good point because it's like when you're in that ground warfare, what's all of the possibilities you're going to use in as survival tactics? Yeah, so doing that kick, it like felt so organic and well done, and it made sense.
yeah, the physics of it were
Yeah,
fantastic. Like,
yeah.
and then when you contrast the combat that, like, you see from the Zaku's and the Goof and the Zaku tank with what the EX can do, it's like
Oh,
that is what makes it even more scary is that, Solari's sitting here in her Zaku and she's watching this Gundam move, and the way that it moves is it almost gives you the same, it's like an inverse of the first time that Amuro fights Char, and this should be fresh in your memory because you just dropped that video about
Yeah.
analyzing the first duel,
Oh
and it's like
yeah.
every time Amuro points his beam rifle at Char, and Char like kind of dashes to the side. I got that same feeling when Solari's fighting the Gundam for the first time, and it's
It's
like,
just like
yeah,
jumping
and
away. And yeah, it actually reminded me how Ramba in the Goof was against Amuro, where he would just always like jump away from him, and Amuro's like, what? And or that might have been Sayla at that point, I forget. But the maneuverability was really pointed out in that. And so, some other cool stuff that happens early on, and I think they don't necessarily, I will say they don't necessarily explain it later on, but even early on, there seems to be situations where it looks like the Gundam could have killed, I guess, would you call them defenseless or just soldiers, infantry? And it didn't. It was like
yeah,
always focusing on. So and what's really cool is like at that moment, if we were to be in the head of the pilot, and we're not at that moment in the show, but would he be like an Amuro or maybe a Shin in a way? Well, although Shin, I think, was a little more, he was willing to just go out there, and he believed about saving people, but he was almost causing harm to do it. Whereas Amuro was like trying to avoid harm. And I feel like this Gundam pilot was doing that,
yeah. I mean, there was definitely and then you contrast that with some of the behavior of the Xeon soldiers and how they treat hostages in the show, and it's like, it really does. Everything about Requiem for Vengeance to me is like an inverse of what happens in the original series because, we think about like how many times during the original series do we have Xeon soldiers that could have had an opportunity to kill Amuro, but they don't.
Yeah,
Ramba Ral buys Amuro a meal.
exactly.
Char helps him change his tire. Like Xeon soldiers are typically perceived as like, look, if we're not in active combat, then we're not going to fight. Like if we're in mobile suits, that's one thing, but like I'm not going to kill you just because you're defenseless here in front of me. And to your point, in Requiem for Vengeance, like you said, the Gundam pilot, even though we don't get to see them at that point in time,
Hmm.
there's a restraint there
Yeah, and it's
that you
interesting.
don't see.
And
Yeah.
and I actually brought this up while I was doing the watch along, but it reminded me of this other thing I really like. Like I like There's a couple like World War I fighter pilot movies. There's Red Baron, or the Red Baron is in it, and I forget the name of it. But anyway, there's a few of them where they'll like shoot each other down, but they'll do it to shoot their wings or to disable them. And then when they go to land, or like when the guy gets downed and lands, the other pilot will go land too, and then they'll kind of like talk with each other and not kill each
Yeah.
other. It's almost like this thing. Oh, we're dueling in the skies, and you know what? I like that because I don't think when it comes to here in America and war, I don't think that's ever really a thing that's brought up of almost like, yeah, we're having to fight this other side, but the individual, it's almost like there's this rules of engagement. And it's not about just killing the individuals, it's about stopping the weaponry. I don't know. But you see what I'm getting at? Where for me, it was
Yeah.
surprising to see, oh, why would someone have restraint in battle? But that's almost in a way, Japanese culture kind of has more of that respect when it comes to engagement, even outside of war.
It's kind of and I won't comment too much on like contemporary politics, but like I would say that there was a trend where wars in previous centuries were very much like existential, where it's like they're fighting to wipe out the entire side of the entire opposing side.
Right.
But I would say that in the most recent history we have like rules that we play by in war. Like you don't shoot medics, you don't,
Yeah.
hurt hostages. We have like the Geneva Conventions. There's like almost rules of engagement that are they're supposed to be respected.
Yeah.
And so we kind of acknowledge the humanity, or the idea is we're supposed to acknowledge the humanity of the person on the other side of the gun. Um, and I worry that that kind of is going away now.
And
It
that's
does
how I've
feel
seen it.
like
Even
it
since
feels like the animosity and the dehumanization is kind of that pendulum is swinging back, right?
Well, yeah, it's interesting you bring that up because I've, always heard about these rules of war or things, acts of war, these things that you shouldn't be doing. And then as a kid, it's like, well, I mean, the war's happening in the first place. Why is this happening? And then I even, I really got into, I think, air combat because of, and this is kind of sad, almost propaganda, but like when Desert Storm happened, it was on TV a lot. And then I'd buy the micro machines and then play the video games. And then I was like,
Yeah.
oh, this is cool, air combat and stuff. And it's like, it's hard to really think that there's rules. It's like, no, we got to just stop. Or, when I did private security and in the training, they're like, if you're pulling out your gun, it's to stop someone. It's not to just like shoot them in the leg because you can't just get your gun out and then aim perfectly at the leg. It's
Yeah,
like,
it's not a video game.
yeah. So it's like this thing where like when you are having to react with violence, it's to stop. You don't react with violence unless you're ending whatever is happening. And so,
Yeah.
but that's the cool thing because there's the, Antarctic Treaty that was a big part of, the original Gundam lore. So you see those rules that are in place, but like, I guess then this actually kind of plays into what I was just saying because then you see where people just don't care about the rules.
Yeah.
Anyway. So it's neat that they address rules. You see characters want to abide by rules, but then you see you're in a world where then other characters don't, and that kind of reflects society directly.
Yeah, and I mean, even when the stakes are not so high, like I'm a big sports fan, right? Like, and soccer is my favorite
Oh,
sport. Like, soccer is a sport that has rules. Like, you're not supposed to use your hands. You're not supposed to go in studs up on someone's leg when you're tackling them. But people do from time to time, and it's like y- you can't stop that human nature.
that's
There's
interesting.
always like the desire to win sometimes overrides the adherence to what we would consider civility.
Yeah, even if knowing doing what you're doing doesn't even do anything, it's almost like this
Yeah.
sort of the competitive nature of wanting to win almost overrides your morals, and that's where you get some people in life that are competitive and some that are not. I know growing up doing things with people, as soon as something like became competitive, usually I would just back off because I'm like, oh, I'm just trying to have fun. I don't need to beat anyone. Oh, we're gonna escalate. Okay, no, I'm good. I'll just, and it's not that I don't know how to explain it. And it's like that with video games sometimes. Like I'll play video games, and sometimes I'll be in a situation where I'm losing a lot, and
Yeah.
it's like, no, that's good because like I can probably learn this way, because I'm not seeing it as a competitive thing. I'm seeing it as like, oh, this is fun. How can I manipulate? How can I game the system, correctly and win?
Yeah, I'm similar. Like I prefer to de-escalate, and for one thing, I'm a stickler for the rules. So like I tend to
Yeah.
get very bent out of shape justice wise when rules are violated. I'm like, well, they should be punished, right?
Yeah,
So
that's a good point because rules can be as simple as morals that maybe we adhere to and think are just like, Graham Hancock I mentioned earlier when he was being called racist by an organization. I felt a great injustice because I like this guy's research and he's a really nice, cool person. And then being called a racist, that's almost like breaking a rule because it's
yeah,
like, okay, you're just saying that because you're just trying to make everyone hate him and not listen to him. It's not, that's breaking the rules of like a moral, just society. Or the school across the street where the parents will park on the street to go pick up their kids, and it's like, wait, the rules say not to park in the street, and there's kids around here. It's a school. You don't care to endanger, and it's an and so it's like sometimes like, okay, am I just this like prude like rule dude? But I think growing up adhering to rules, again, not that like I have to do what authority says all the time, but rules that are based in good, like doing what's good natured for a situation, I think I
yeah.
have always helped me than hurt me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, it's there's always like that saying, right? Why do bad things happen to good people, right? And it's like if you're following all the rules, technically you should get the spoils, right? And I think especially when it comes to like warfare and you know, the idea of war crimes and things like that in general. I think a lot about like game theory, if you've studied any of that, like you know, Simon Sinek does these great talks about finite games versus infinite games, right? And like finite games are for a set time period, the rules are clearly established, and there's always a winner. Whereas infinite games are endless, obviously, and it's in the name. The players can change because you can drop out of the game or you can come back in and play. It's fluid amounts of players, and the rules can change. And so, like, when it comes to, like, the business world, for instance, you know, you're never going to win at business because the goal of being in business is to just continue to do business. So there's
Yeah.
no winners and losers in business. It's just how
Interesting.
long can you stay in the game? And so when you take that and you apply it to something like warfare, um, the guy that's playing the infinite game is always going to beat the guy that's playing the finite game. So if your goal is to, say, if you're Xeon, to conquer the Earth, but the Federation's goal is we just want to continue to exist, they're going to win because they are just going to continue to outlast them.
You know, that's pretty good. Let me use this other analogy. I don't know the analogy. Maybe it can make sense to you. Like, let's think of the video game industry right now, where like all these companies are just trying to make as much money as possible. So the rules of business is just to do that. But is it where then they're having to do layoffs? But maybe that's just changing the rules of the game, and they're kind of still able to stay around.
Exactly. At the end
Yeah.
of the day, when it comes to business, the goal of the game is to stay in the game as long as you can. And so as long as the company still has its stores open, then you're still in the game. As soon as you have to close up shop.
Yeah, that's pretty good. So no, this is really cool where we got to with this because again, like when and I think this is something Gundam has always been good about in the storytelling, and it reflects it here, where things happen where you as a viewer might not understand why they're thinking this way, and it could just be their morals. Like again, that Gundam pilot, I don't know why he's doing that, but I can see a world where a pilot of a craft, a weapon is like, well, I'm not going to shoot these people's, let me go just take out this other weapon. So it's cool that show still does that
Yeah,
stuff.
and you see it in the motivations of the Xeon pilots is like you can identify like, okay, this is the type of guy that would open fire on civilians. This is the type of guy that is like, no, we're fighting for independence, you know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So you can identify those different and you know, you can see it on like soccer teams too, where it's like, you know, that's the guy that's going to be steadfast and play by the rules, and that's the guy that you know is you need to watch out because he's going to be tugging shirts and like trying to play dirty. So
That's pretty cool because there's a moment that, and I forgot what episode it was that happened in Requiem for Vengeance, where one of the Xeon characters almost goes too far with how angry he is, but with a fellow Xeon soldier. And it reminded me of the Megatron storyline in Transformers 1, because I think that did a really good job of, oh, this guy, it's funny because Optimus Prime wasn't playing by the rules, but
yeah,
he was doing good things. Megatron was playing by the rules, and he's so mad that they wouldn't play by the rules that he became this thing. Yeah,
exactly.
that's really cool. And so, um, okay, as we're getting near the end here, so yeah, I think it's cool that we dived in this just because we didn't want to really spend this time talking spoilers. We'll do that next week. But
Yeah.
I got to say, since I finished the show, and some of you have, like, I'm going to do a proper video review to talk about certain elements. But I'll tell everyone, I'm surprised it was actually better than I thought it would be. I actually came in with these expectations of, and I hate to say this, but it's Netflix. It's not like it's very like well-known creators behind this, but it's not like they're bad creators. I mean, people have made stuff since 08 MS Team, and the fact that it's different cultures with language barriers that came together and were able to defy that in order to create this. Like I said, I think it's better than most exclusive Netflix shows. I think the only thing
Yeah.
holding it back is the human CGI. It's kind of hard, but the more I was watching it, the more I loved like. It's almost like I got over the main character, especially, and I think they took more time with animating the main character anyway.
Yeah,
Because
yeah, and
yeah,
you know, even for people criticizing like the mobile suit designs, like it's very different seeing them in the context of the show versus seeing like you know the goofy pose that they use for the Gunpla previews. Like,
yeah, that's a good point. Because I guess looking at when you look at the Zaku 2 model kits, it seems like something's off. But when you're seeing them in action, it all makes sense. Like,
yeah,
and at one point, I'm thinking, how big does the sensor need to be on top of the shoulders? I mean, that's just a target, you know. And I think there's like a good balance of kind of keeping it low profile, but still doing
yeah,
what it needs to do. Um,
yeah,
and yeah, and so not that I'm not going to get into spoilers, but there's also some interesting things that do happen along the way in this that I want to be able to talk about next week.
yeah.
And what do you think you would watch the rest of it by next week? Not that I'm forcing you to, but we have a
I
binge
mean, I'm watching
policy.
the rest of it tonight. That's and probably watch it again before next
Oh
week.
yeah, I think I am too. Yeah, for sure. Well, yeah, that was fun to talk about. Zionic Shadow sent me something that remind me, Shadow, next week to share it. There's just so many cool moments that could be gifable,
Oh yeah.
from the show.
Hashtag war sounds.
Yeah. Oh man, I got to remember that. But anyway, yeah, that's it for today's show. So, guys, remember, check the links in the description because there's some cool people that support Gundam Explained that have their own cool stuff down there. Art Rovo Gundam, check the link there, supporter of the channel.
Yeah. Get those real grade 2.0s while they're still in stock.
Yeah, before they sell out. And then so Saturday, I don't know the time yet, probably in the evening. Maybe, I don't know. Sometime Saturday. I'm gonna do a live stream build of this. I doubt I'm gonna finish it, but I'm gonna dude, when I'm talking to chat, I can't build.
Oh yeah, same here.
But it'd be cool to at least get it out, talk with chat. Hey, maybe others that are the new type tier can even join in.
That'd be fun.
Yeah, that'll be fun. So, anything you want to add, Steven?
No, man, great show. This
Yeah.
was fun.
Great show. It was fun. Cool. Well, yeah. Thanks everyone in the chat. I really appreciate it. And Lucas Garrett, you bringing up that concept of seeing, I love that. That's my headcanon now. Multiple Gundams make people think, oh, this white devil, he could be anywhere, and that's a pretty cool concept. So,
Yeah.
all right. Well, until next time, have a good one.